Hi, welcome to Avi's Kosher Kitchen. I'm Avi, and before we get going, and I explained to you the reason why the gloves have gone on instead of come off, let's say L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei bli hagefen. Oh, that's so good. A beautiful wine from our friends over at Tishby, good Israeli wine. It's going to be, for me, one of the best compliments when you cook this. This is a rack of lamb. Beautiful, beautiful lamb roast from our friends at Whole Foods. This is all natural, not only pasture raised, but 100% grass fed, okay? No antibiotics, no growth hormones, nothing crazy in it, just good stuff. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. Now, what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna learn how to French the roast, okay? Frenching the roast basically means we're gonna cut a lot of stuff away and make it a little bit more presentable. Now, if you look at this roast from underneath here, you see there's 8 bones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that is a full-size rack of lamb. Now on here, we've got these little bones that came here. We're gonna start by cutting them off, okay? You just make a little slice here. I'm using a boning knife, okay? Boning knife, you could see starts a little thick here and tapers to a nice point. Also, the blade itself starts thicker down here and tapers thin to the point, okay? Really lets you get in and just cut those bones out and anything else you want. So we start by making a little incision along the back here, and we're just gonna cut these bones off. And they come off very easy, very nicely, and there you go. Now, you don't wanna throw anything away because you could use these for a stock, you could use these in all sorts of stuff, okay? Now, on the top here, we've got a flap. This is the top of the rib. Again, we're gonna hold on to this. This has got lots of nice lamb fat on it. It's also something that you wanna use and have ready for a stew, for any kind of thing like that where you want some extra meat flavor. You could take it, cut it up, pre-package it, put it in your freezer, and then when you're ready, you take one package out and you use it, okay? So simply, we just peel this back, and you can see there's a little membrane right here that all you do is cut as you peel and the whole thing comes off. Isn't that nice? Just beautiful how it's done. Now, our friends at Whole Foods, what they do with this lamb, this is all from Virginia. They have, they go to these small farms where they really care. This farm in Virginia, it's run by a war vet, and it's really the epitome of sustainable farming. By that I mean, it's not just that everything is used and recycled and done in the absolute best possible way, but another aspect of it is that the land that these lambs come from is not really good farming land, okay? So if somebody tried to make it a farm, it would denude the landscape, it would really be bad news. So instead, you know what, they said, listen, let's work with the environment, let's work with nature, and we'll really make this a place where we could raise animals and do it in a very sustainable fashion. And as I said before, these are 100% grass-fed. It's the only 100% grass-fed lot kosher meat, and that means that they've got lots of good stuff. And you could see the meat here. It's a lot leaner because grass-fed is going to be leaner meat. It's going to give you a lot of good stuff, but not a huge fat layer, but there is fat on it that's going to still give you the flavor you want, okay? We're just going to cut a little bit more of that fat off on the top here. We don't want to have a whole lot, but keep that fat. I'm telling you, that's what, when you have a shawarma, good shawarma, the lamb fat on top of it, man, that's what makes it. So we got that. Now, we're going to flip this over. And we look at our bones. We want to take from about here back and remove all of this meat from between the bones. So first, we start by making a cut right along the back of the bones. Just make this cut right here. You want to make sure you have a nice sharp knife, okay? And in that cut, we're going to just kind of punch a hole right between them. So now we've got a guide as to where we're cutting to, okay? And here, these bones actually had been a little bit cut before. Okay, and then we just come right along the bone and cut down like so. On the first one, this is kind of my technique on how to do it. There's lots of different ways that people tell you to do it. I come along right there, What I do now is I like to flip it over because now I got a guide. And again, score the top of those bones right along by my guide here. And we're going to just take the meat right from that score line and cut right along the bone, cut that down. So what we're going to do is expose the actual bone itself, okay? Going to expose it down, because when you see how this pans out, this looks out, it's really, really a nice presentation. Now, whether you're making this for a fancy dinner, because rack of lamb, listen, let's face it, rack of lamb is it's an expensive piece of meat. It's a nice piece of meat. So you want to make the nicest presentation you can on this, because you're going to use it at a nice dinner for guests and stuff like that. So we're gonna put this down. Now this happens to be an exceptionally big rack in terms of the bones. A lot of times these bones are cut off, but you really get the whole rack here on Cold Foods, which is great. And these are, you've heard the lollipop lamb chops. These are going to be like tomahawk lamb chops, Okay, so now we've got this layer on the top of the bones. Just cut now right between the bones, right along them, and you're going to get this meat. It's going to just kind of pop right off. Anything that's left there, you take, cut it off, and that's it. Just right along with every single bone, right down to where we originally made our initial incision on that. And this is really good meat, by the way, that we're cutting off here. So you don't want to throw that out, as I said. You want to keep that. That is really good stew. In fact, I remember when I was a kid, and my dad got a little bit extra money in, and he would buy a rack of lamb, or he'd buy lamb chops. We didn't French anything. We savored every bit of meat that was on that bone. And I got to tell you, some of my favorite meat was that, okay? Now, these two chops really kind of come off. So you know what I'm going to do? We're going to cut this down here. And I'm going to show you another trick on that you could do with this rack of lamb in a minute. Okay? I'm going to just take a little bit more of this fat layer off. And we're going to cut a little bit more out. Just to clean it up a little bit more. Okay, now let's put these over here. All of this we're holding, I'm going to put that right there. All that extra fat and meat. Now these two chops that really had kind of already been a little disconnected, what we're going to do is going to cut this big fat layer off. Boom. I got one here. The end chops are, sometimes a rack comes with six bones instead of 8. It's because the end chops aren't always the best in terms of ease when they come off. But I'm going to take this. This is a nice 2-bone rack, and this actually grilled. Oh man, you are talking delight in the mouth. You are talking something that's going to make your taste buds go all fluttery and tingly, okay? Just put that right on the grill. I like to keep it thick because that way you're going to get a nice bit of crusting all on it, and the inside could stay nice and medium rare. Okay, now with our rack here, 6-bone rack, we're just going to take this, finish cleaning it up, and that's really it. This is going to be our rack. I'm keeping a lot of this fat. If you want to trim a little bit more off, you can, but that fat's going to give it lots and lots of flavor, okay? So there we are, a Frenched 6-bone rack of lamb from our friends at Cold Foods, okay? And if you tune in to my next video, you're going to see how we prepare this. And I'm going to tell you, it is going to be, for me, an absolute favorite dish of mine. It's going to be a dish that you're going to serve at, whatever fancy event. And in fact, the one we're going to prepare is made especially for New Year's Eve. So, until next time, now I'm taking the gloves off, and I'm going to wish you guys l'chaim and happy eating. I'm out.